From the ashes of Emperor Palpatine's death and the Dark Empire in Star Wars Legends at the hands of the New Republic, the remaining Imperial leaders of the Galactic Empire began to unite under a new leadership while in opposition to the New Republic government. But who united them? And how did these squabbling power-hungry warlords unite under a new Imperial government? Welcome to Imperials Explained, and in this video we continue the Star Wars Legends story from the Empire's decline into a new era for what Imperial factions remained to fight against the New Republic. So let's dive into the Star Wars Legends story. In 11 ABY, an Imperial female admiral known in Star Wars Legends as Natasi Daala was posted at the Maw installation. It was a remote Imperial research centre established by Grand Moff Tarkin for the creation of superweapons. Whilst in command over the isolated Maw installation, Daala felt abandoned and unappreciated by the Empire. She battled constantly with feelings of bitterness and resentment for being sidelined, despite her capabilities. Daala held a great sense of loyalty and personal affection for Tarkin, even engaging in a romantic relationship with him. Yet deep down she was aware Tarkin exploited her skills and devotion for his own gain, without giving her the power or recognition she deserved. However, the Admiral remained fiercely loyal to the ideals of Palpatine's New Order and stability, which she believed the Galactic Empire represented. Unaware of the Galactic Empire's splintered existence for years after Endor, Daala eventually learned of the Emperor's death and the Galactic Empire's defeat at the Battle of Endor. Furious at the Empire's collapse, but ambitious and determined to prove herself as a competent leader, she took command of her own Imperial fleet and launched attacks on Mon Calamari, Dantooine, and other New Republic worlds. However, Daala's tactics were outdated and ineffective, and she suffered heavy defeats at the hands of Admiral Ackbar and the New Republic forces. The Admiral's lack of field experience, combined with her isolation at the Maw installation, left her feeling insecure about whether she could match the legacy of other Imperial leaders. In 12 ABY, Admiral Dala, desperate to unify the remaining Imperial forces, called an assembly of the 13 most powerful Imperial warlords to a neutral Imperial venue at Tosso Beacon. The notable warlords included Xander Del Vardos, Blitzer Harsk, Truton Teradok, plus others, to negotiate and discuss the future of the former Galactic Empire. After listening to the warlords argue about their differences for several hours, Daala finally decided to execute the warlords using poison gas in a pre-planned move to take their Imperial forces and create her new Imperial Remnant. Then, as the highest-ranking surviving officer, she took command of all the former Imperial warlord fleets and ground forces. It was a ruthless move that shocked the remaining Imperials into obedience and unity. It was one of the most savage but effective power grabs in Star Wars Legends history. With a unified Imperial Remnant, Daala now led the largest Imperial force assembled since the Galactic Empire's defeat at the Battle of Endor. Her second-in-command, Gilad Pellaeon, was a very experienced and capable first officer, and so began to prepare a full assault on the New Republic. But first, Daala also recognised that the old Imperial system was broken, especially socially, so she began to introduce reforms which would strengthen the order of the newly formed Imperial Remnant. So let's look at what Daala improved. Tackling prejudice against women was a priority, as she herself had experienced sexism in the Imperial ranks firsthand. Misogyny was banned from the ranks, and Daala promoted qualified female officers. Secondly, her inclusion of non-humans into the Imperial ranks was a completely new concept, as the Empire was notorious for favouring humans and excluding or enslaving non-human species. Daala reversed that policy, allowing non-humans to serve in the military, which was both morally and progressively and strategically smart, since it widened the pool of available recruits and allies. Thirdly, the decaying fleet was reinvigorated. By the time Daala took command, the Imperial fleet was suffering from outdated ships, low morale, and a shrinking officer corps. She launched recruitment drives, restructured command hierarchies, and modernised the Imperial war machine, making it a more competent and cohesive force, at least temporarily. But why did Daala go to such lengths? The answer was because she remained one of the few Imperial leaders who understood that ideology and bigotry were weaknesses and not strengths. Her reforms weren't just about fairness, they were tactical. She realised that to compete with the New Republic, her new Imperial Remnant had to adapt or die. With her fleet ready, Daala and Pellaeon planned to attack a world they knew they could win. Their intended strategic target was Yavin 4, the home of the Jedi Praxium. This was Luke Skywalker's training academy, making victory at Yavin 4 symbolic of the Imperials' united return. Pellaeon was ordered by Daala to attack the Jedi Praxium, followed by her attack as a second wave to overwhelm the New Republic and any remaining Jedi. Admiral Dala's Imperial Star Destroyers arrived in orbit above Yavin 4 before bombarding the surface with ground assault units, including stormtroopers, walkers, and TIE fighters, to destroy the temple and kill the Jedi trainees. What should have been a mop-up exercise for Dala turned into a fierce battle with Admiral Akbar's forces when she realised Pellaeon's fleet was nowhere to be seen. To compound Dala's problems, a combat-wounded Corellian gunship rammed the bridge of one of her senior officers, Colonel Cronus, annihilating his vessel. However, Dala underestimated Luke's Jedi students, who, despite being inexperienced and untested, banded together using their Force abilities and had managed to force Pellaeon's entire fleet out to the edge of the system by what Pellaeon later called Jedi sorcery. Dala's Imperial vessel, the Executor-class Nighthammer, was infiltrated by the Jedi Knight Callista Ming, who successfully sabotaged the Nighthammer and forced Dala into a short firefight before Dala shot Ming with a stun blast. The Admiral then left Callista for dead and escaped. Dala's failed assault galvanized the Jedi Order, proving the Jedi Praxium could survive without Luke, and also showing the strength of his students and the future of the Jedi. For Dala, it marked yet another failed campaign, showcasing the limitations of brute force against the evolving New Republic and the spiritual resilience of the Jedi. The frustrating defeat to the New Republic and the Jedi made Dala realise her quest for vengeance against the New Republic had put too many loyal Imperials in danger. She wrestled with the question of whether maintaining order was worth the cost in lives and morality. Her excessive ruthlessness had undermined her goal to defeat the Jedi on this occasion. Internally conflicted and frustrated with the Empire, Dala decided with bitterness to relinquish her title as Supreme Commander and promoted Gilad Pellaeon to the rank of Admiral. Stepping aside exhausted with feelings of regret, she was carrying the weight of all her failures. Although in 13 ABY determined once again to restore Imperial order to the galaxy, Dala returned to the Deep Core to form her own splintered faction called the Replacement Warlords, having united the forces of Fogger Brill and Moff Jamil Tathis. Check out the next story in the series when I cover the rise of Gilad Pellaeon and the founding of the Imperial Remnant state. But thanks for watching, and as always, long live the Empire.